Yeah, yeah, we're live. I can never tell when that's going to start. Today we're going to talk about a cam contest. So I'm going to give away a cam, and the way that I'm going to give this away, and we'll go over this a number of times in this video because it's not obviously going to happen tonight. We want the other people that are not here for the live feed also to be able to participate. So I'll let this run, let's say a week, and then we'll see how many runs this thing people are going to guess. And so here's the deal. So I have a Texas Speed CHOPACABRA cam, and we use it for testing way back, just sitting around. And what I'm going to do is give it away because I have it sitting around. It's not doing anything. We would run it again because it's a good cam. It works. But I figured this way we'll be able to help somebody else out, and that would be good. So what I'm going to do is I have a 5.3 liter, and this is an L33. It's all aluminum one. It's the one that I got from the wrecking yard, and I've used it a lot. And I was looking back through all the data and counting the number of runs that I made. And it dawned on me that it's been almost 2 years since I had this motor. So I've had it quite a long time. I think it looks like the first test that I ran was back in March of 2022. So it's been a little while. But the question is, and here's what I want you to do. Here's how you're going to win the camshaft. You need to guess how many dyno runs this motor has on it as of right now. Next time I go down, who knows? We may put some more on it and run it some more. The question is, and make sure to like, hit the like button while you're here. But you need to guess how many dyno pulls on. I could tell you that, and we'll go over this a little bit. So I've tested if you guys remember, the Ford blower with the Demuse adapter on it. We tested that. We tested the Truck Norris versus the CHOPACABRA twice, and then the Cam Motion and also the little Summit Cam. We've done other L33 cam tests. We've tested all the sloppy cams now. I use it as a flow test for the AMR blower. We did some L33, a bunch of intake manifolds, carbureted stuff. We ran the sloppy stage 2, and we ran the best cam with it. I think we ran the best cam with it. I know that we ran the sloppy stage 2 and the Truck Norris, both with the single turbo on it. We ran, as I said, spark plugs and oil and, the different indexing and all kinds of stuff with that. We ran, most recently, obviously, we've done a bunch of runs with the M90 supercharger. We ran the combinations where we made, more than 500 horsepower. And then we got up as high as like 540 horsepower on these with the Brian Tooley Racing Trinity intake manifold and stuff. So you could see we've, if you go back and look through all of them, we've made quite a few runs. And the reason that I wanted to point this out is because you get a lot of people that talk about, I can't believe you're running those things on the dyno. You're just going to wear out the motor. And they don't realize a number of things. They don't realize, first of all, that when you're driving your vehicle, like my truck has 330,000 miles on it. That's a lot of miles. That's way more than the dyno pulls that we would put on it. But a lot of these motors that we put, and I'm sure that this L33 is a perfect example, that they came out of the wrecking yard with 100, 200, 300,000 miles, whatever the numbers. I didn't even check this one to see when we took it out to see, how many miles it had on it when we started this. But when we start running them, they still run good. A lot of these motors that I've taken out of wrecking yards, LM7s and LR4s, they do last a long time, and you don't wear them out. I mean, that's if anything, the one in my truck at 330,000 miles might be more prone to wear out. But a lot of these things work really well. And it was funny when I was at Engine Masters, when I was doing that competition, I told guys that how many pulls I had on mine, trying to find the optimum combination, because it takes a long time. But they were like, "Oh, you're just going to wear it out. It's going to make less power." I'm like, "No, that's not what happens. In fact, as you wear it in, it gets better and then stays that way for a long time. And then way down the line sometime, I guess, it would start to, to wear out, but not with the number of runs that we had on it. But they think that, I don't know why they would think that a dyno is harder on it than accelerating it in a vehicle, or especially running quarter-mile runs, because a dyno pull, although the dyno pull, single gear dyno pull, depending on how long your sweep is, might last as long as an average kind of acceleration run through the quarter mile. You're doing that through different gears and stuff, and different RPMs and different loads and stuff. So I just don't get that. You see if you look at the Gladiator motors from Westech, I'd like to go back and count all of those, but it's a lot. It's way more than this 5.3, I'm sure, but it's a lot at any rate. And it's still, I would, in reality, I would be more concerned, I think, with the fact that we run it and then take it off and then let it sit. And so then it would tend to rust up and stuff. That doesn't really happen normally with a truck, or with a vehicle that you have, because a lot of times you'll go drive it every day or every other day, or maybe let it sit for a couple of days, but you don't run it and then let it sit for a month and then go back and run it again. I think that that's way worse on it than what we're doing on the dyno. On the dyno, especially this, who knows on this L33, who knows when its last oil change was. Well, I've already performed a bunch of oil changes, and every time I do, it's pretty dark. You can see on some of the runs that it's blowing out some, it's got some blow by on it. I don't doubt that. I'm sure I know my truck does too. It's got blow by on it. These things, the LSs, especially if you run the factory PCV system, they tend to burn oil anyway. I know that when I took my intake manifold off, when I was doing some stuff at Westech, when we were trying to put the M90 on my truck, when I took the intake manifold off, and when you tip it one way or the other, oil drains out of it. There's actually there's raw oil in there. And so, obviously that's not good. And that's the PCV system. Luckily on the engine dyno, we don't run that. We vent it to atmosphere. So I'm not drawing oil vapor back in, which I think is a bad idea. And a lot of times since this is a factory one with all the smog stuff and everything's hooked up correct and it's just stock, we run all that stuff. But a lot of guys that are running these in performance applications and sand rails and things, they have the valve covers vented like we do on the engine dyno, and they go up to a catch can or breather setup or something. And then that tends to work a little better, because the detonation threshold of oil vapor is much lower than gasoline is, and you'll be more likely to create detonation issues if you're breathing in that oil. Luckily for me on my truck, I don't really race it around. I'm mostly just driving light part throttle, doing long cruises to, back and forth to Westech, but that's all good. So but the L33 continues to work really well. It continues to be very repeatable, run after run. Like I said, and we've run I didn't count the number of runs yet going to, 7,500 or more. I haven't counted the number of those runs, but it's got more than a handful of those. So every time I run it, it sounds glorious, with the big cam and the short runner intake and that stuff. But every time I do it, I'm like, man, I wonder how much longer this can last. I'm thinking about talking to Lake Speed about maybe running some different rings in this thing. Like, I want to ask him what he would recommend. I don't want to change the pistons. Like, I want to keep the pistons the way that they are. And I'd like to see what the piston to wall clearance is. Maybe it's more than I want it to be, but I know that we probably could get, I'm thinking, a little more power with the right ring package and the right crosshatch. So I want to talk to Lake about that and see if there's something he recommends, see if there's a total seal package that we might be able to do a ring swap on. And then for a ring swap, we'd have to do a different crosshatch and then a break-in, and then hopefully see if we could get better ring seal, keeping the piston the same, and then do a ring test and then see if we could get more power from just the ring test. That would be interesting. I've never done that, and I'd like to see what happens and see if the other one that a lot of people want to see is they want to see a ring gap test. I have inadvertently done that when we've run motors and then put ring gap in them, but I don't remember. In fact, I know that I haven't run it on the dyno and then taken it all apart and changed the ring gap and put it back together and then run it again on the dyno on the same day. I've never done that. We have run it and then taken it apart and then put it back together and then run it the next day or days after that, or whenever we were getting ready to put the turbos on. I've done that, and there didn't seem to be a big discernible power between that. But I wasn't really specific about making sure the oil temperature was exactly the same or the water temperature was exactly the same, between that run and the previous run that had been done a day or a week or a month ago, whenever it was when we ran it before. I think when looking back at this stuff, I was looking for like, oh, was it 10 horsepower or 15 or something? I don't think that. I mean, I know it wasn't that, but I would want to be more specific if you were doing a test like that, because you might be looking for, onesies or twosies or foursies or something. So one of the Z's. You might be looking for something very small, or maybe something that's non-existent, and in a given gap range, maybe you don't see anything because this is happening so fast, and maybe you see, which I suspect that this might be true because we see that on compression tests and stuff, and that's that you might see more power down low when the piston speed is lower and there's more time for blow by to escape past. I mean, because the rings sometimes will line up, but even when they're not lined up, the blow by has to go through and make a turn and then make another turn and then go out and get past the oil ring, which I don't think that's too much of a problem. But at lower speeds, I think that would be easier for it to do than at higher speeds. So I'd like to see that. I mean, I'd like to see what happened, and maybe there's a special ring package that could, help that situation, and also a crosshatch pattern that might also be beneficial. Because let's face it, after, I don't know how many miles are on the L33, but I'm sure it's got a lot. The nice thing about these LS motors is the bores tend not to wear dramatically, which is why we don't see a big change in ring gap. Before, like small block Chevys and stuff, you'd see a big change in cylinder wear, and it would get bigger as the thing was running. So much so that you couldn't get the piston out because you'd have a big ridge at the top. We don't ever see that in LS motors. So there's not a lot of wear there. And so a lot of times when you take these things apart with a lot of miles on them, you can kind of still see the crosshatch in these things. But I'm sure that these things have to be, glazed, or the cross hatches have to be all smoothed over and stuff with 100, 200, 300,000 miles on them. And so I'm sure that there's got to be something to be had there. If nothing else, with that many miles on it, it would be interesting to measure the ring tension and see if the ring tension has kind of gone away. So let's see. So what we're talking about today, so for the guys maybe that are just getting here, is that you can win a camshaft. You can win a Texas Speed CHOPACABRA camshaft. I'm going to give it away. You need to guess how many dyno pulls I have on the L33 aluminum motor that I got out of the wrecking yard, that I have run a bunch of times to run a bunch of different dyno tests. How many dyno pulls do I have on that as of today? And so you guys that come later on after the after the live feed, if you're watching the video, how many dyno pulls it have? Just guess in the comments, and then I'll go through all the comments, and then we can figure out who wins. Let's go back and scroll back. I think what we're going to see as we scroll back are a lot of different numbers. Hydraulic cam or solid cam, which is better, to 8,000. What engine family are you talking about? Lots of guys running hydraulic roller LS stuff to 8,000, and we've done that on a number of different applications. But most guys that are running their sustained tend to go with a solid. Stang, Zoo, Dylan, Turbo Sentra, as long as it's the best cam. I saw a free, so you're here. Yeah, I get that a lot. 17, 27, nitrous and turbos and superchargers. Oh my, all of those. We run all of those. I thought I was looking back to see if I'd ever run nitrous on this, and I don't remember seeing the nitrous. Let's see. Number 268, 69, 87, 310, 179, 93, 23, 33, 142, 32, $1 Bob, 167, 89, 201, 130, 133. That's like an L33, right? 327 pulls as of now. 454, 427. Now we're just picking engine displacements. 105, 42069, 33163. So we got a lot of numbers here. We got lots and lots of numbers. 186 poles, yes. The free cam, my 4.8 rev forward Levicam. What's a good location for air intake temp? In one of the runners is good, and you're going to assume that they're all similar. We normally take it when I put the digital parameter in there, it just goes in the plenum normally, but you could also do it in one of the cylinders, like the Ford stuff. The 5-liter Ford stuff was like that. They had it in one of the runners. Don't give me the cam, give it to someone who's more likely to use it, because my 5.3 won't be ready for a number of years. Dylan, I could tell you that your guess isn't going to win the cam. Got some more guesses. How often do you change the oil on the dyno? It depends. Because that was a junkyard motor, it got a little bit more frequent oil changes. So we would change it a lot of times. Every time the thing runs E85, we normally change it after that. Thanks for finally doing a sloppy stage 3. It'd be interesting to see it in a 6.0 or 6.2. True on dyno runs, but I personally had experienced negative outcomes when the brake on an eddy current dyno was a bit too harsh. I don't really know what you mean by that. Are you saying that the dyno somehow hurt the motor? What are the numbers for? I'm late. Taylor, it's for you to guess how many runs we made with the L33 motor so far so you can win a camshaft. 936. Now we're just picking portion numbers. GM did the ring gap test on the dyno. Negative 56. That would be a lot, or not a lot. I want to get a nasty backfire tune on my 5.3 because it's a LMG and it stands for light machine gun. Those are sounds that calm me. Thanks for the help on the turbo selection. 224 bore. I've ordered it. Now the installation begins. Would it be better to build an L31 4L60E instead of an LQ9 with a 6L80? Well, why would you do the small block with a 4L60? Whose boost controllers do you like? The only ones that I've run manual ones from a variety of different people, just bleed valves. And then we've run the TC1 electronic controller. And probably the next time I run a turbo, we'll just control it with the Holly. But obviously we don't do boost by gear or anything like that. Not on the dyno. Don't like the way Turbo Smart does boost by gear. It's kludgy. Heavyweight transport. I want to pay for the camshaft. Heavyweight transport. You want to buy the cam? I know it's more than 40, 37, 338, 225, 174. 4L60 can be built way cheaper than a 6L80. I think you have 1,033 poles. That would be a lot. I tried to use 4L60 for my password, and Google said it was too weak. Ooh, shots fired. Google shots. Never had issues with a built 4L60. 3.3-stroker L31 with a 4L60, 3200 stall converter. Okay. Well, that's different than just a 6-liter. Let air temp I always use between the intercooler and the throttle body. I like to know what it is in the manifold, but it shouldn't change much depending on the length of tubing. Samir, what is the question? The question is, how many dyno runs does the L33 that I have that I got from the wrecking yard? I've used it for a bunch of testing. How many dyno pulls do you think are on that motor? Okay, so our poll. Okay, does the L33 have more than 100 dyno poles so far? That will be our question, our poll for today. I'm going to ask here first. I have a brand new Walbro 255. Does anyone have a 340 or bigger to trade with cash on my end? I don't, but I do need a 255 for my truck. I'm going to just buy one from Summit. It's a load chassis dyno. Okay. More numbers. Bigfoot, you think it's 1,000? 119, 76, 364, 265, 67, 69, 61. I bought an S10 LQ9. Your videos got me a blower. None are cheap anymore. The Ford GT500 ones. Yeah, probably not. As soon as I do something, a video on it, then it's, you know. Do you think a 7.3 power stroke turbocharger would be enough for a 5.3? I don't know what that thing will support. I don't think I've ever tried one. You should get 2 of them. I know, right? Who doesn't want a free cam? 4.8 L20 going into a CJ7 in need of a cam, 538 gears. Do you want to know what cam you should get? So tell me about the rest of the motor. What intake do you have on there and stuff? I just installed a 218 227. What did we just test? Oh, a 218 230. That was the big nasty cam. Manual streetcar, your opinion is the cam too small? No, it depends on what you're trying to do. There are cams obviously that will make a lot more peak power, but they also make a lot less. Well, they make some less power down low. So it depends on what you're trying to do. For a turbo, I think that's probably a good cam in a 6-liter. It should be very responsive with a 78, 75. Timing is on point. Best suggestions for reliable 5.3, 2003 truck engine, top end, heads, and cam. The stock ones that are on it are really good. Official guess is 126. So you're giving away a free cam. Yes, I am. Guess how many pulls the L33 has on it as of right now. Also, one of the viewers is sending me a set of iron heads, a set of iron 6-liter heads, which means I can do an iron head versus aluminum head after I do a bunch of measurements of the iron head. I want to make sure that it is indeed the same or close as we can get to the 317 head. Yep, doggies are barking in the background. Have an LQ4 swap. Is the Trailblazer SS intake worth buying? It definitely makes more power than the stock truck, but it depends what else you're doing with it. 210, 101, 113, 392. So where are we at here? So does the L33 have more than 100 dyno poles so far? 75% are saying yes. 25% are saying no. How do you prevent downshifts on a 4L60E? Mine likes to downshift rolling, and I punch it like 60 miles an hour and decides to downshift to drive at wide open throttle instead of holding overdrive. So you want to mash the pedal to the floor and not have it downshift? Andrew, Richard, I need a cam. Help me pick one and send it, please. Vortex supercharged 6-liter in a square body. What are you trying to do with it? How much power are you trying to make? How high do you want to rev it? All of that stuff. You know, a stock 4.8 in the RAV would love a cam. Yes, it would. Is the RAV4, are you rock crawling or something with it? Or are you racing it? What are you doing? Should I upgrade my 04 GMC 4.2 liter? I want a street car that will drift and have fun. The car is 120,000 miles. Probably boost is going to be a good thing on the 4.2. Want the iron Ellis heads when you're done. I've been seeing videos of Dimple porting in my video feeds. What's the benefit of that? According to Eric, there's really not very much in dimple porting. I'm supposed to test the dimple pistons, but I haven't heard back from those guys. LS3 6-liter. What's the best budget cam kit for turbo? Only looking for 600 horsepower. Well, I'm a little confused because a 6-liter isn't an LS3. A 6.2 is an LS3. And if you have an all aluminum LS3 and all you want to make a 600 horsepower with a turbo, all you have to do is add boost. What are you guys doing? Huh? What are you doing? Hello. Come here. Hello. Okay. Go get him. Attack. Go get Milo. Attack of the dogs. A typical turbo LS, how many degrees of time do you usually see when you're pushing it on E85? We normally run in the low 20s, depending on the boost level. I have 799 heads, 2-wheel drive street truck, just want decent power and stay on 93. Andrew. Look at something like the BTR hot rod cam, maybe would be a good like street cam pump gas. Just boost or upgrade fuel and other components. Well, you have to upgrade that. You have to have enough fuel flow to support the power level, and stock injectors don't do that. So you need injectors and pump and tuning. But I'm saying with the turbo, you don't have to add a cam or ported heads or intake or anything like that to get to that power level. Richard, did you drive your truck with the M90 or only test fitted at West Tech? Well, I didn't drive it. It never came off of the dyno. Same question as Fast Pulse, a non-intercooled 10-to-1 compression, assuming 85. It is torque limited and not knock limited. I don't know what you mean by torque limited. Are you? I would run the same timing. I don't know how much, but I don't know how much boost you're trying to run. I'm talking about lower and reasonable boost levels. I mean, I could be pulling 80 miles an hour and mash the pedal, decides to downshift. No reason to downshift. Actually, there is a reason to downshift. If you're going 80 miles an hour and it'll accelerate better in third gear than it will in overdrive, then there's definitely a reason to downshift. Is there still room? I don't know I don't think I've ever taken third gear all the way out to the end of its RPM range. Yeah, the dogs are awesome. Yeah, those are the two golden puppies. Wouldn't dibble pistons be a carbon trap? I don't really know. You got any further on plans for the Metro? Yeah, as a matter of fact, I got to get on the phone with him because he said that he had good news and bad news for me. So we'll have to see. My neighbor has a turbo Dixie chopper lawnmower. Nice. Do you have plans to test more blowers? Like what kind of blowers? So you ran it on the chassis dyno. We tried to run it on the chassis dyno is the more optimum thing. Iron LS heads on aluminum block and put it in a Reliant Robin circular roll hoops. Wow, that's oddly specific. Hellcat supercharger on an LS, would it be possible? Well, anything's possible. Obviously, you could remote mount it or adapter mount it somehow. I've never seen one of those up close, so I don't know what the discharge part of it looks like. I'm here to win the LS cam and trade it for the 351 cam. So if you win, I'll give you a 351 cam. Torque limited explanation. From what I've understood about tuning 85, more advanced will stop making more torque before it knocks. Oh, if you have low boost, you could get to the point in timing where you stop making power. And then you get to the point where you break something, just like with NA stuff. What stall should I get for converter on a built 6-liter LS drag engine with trans brake glide and a 2,000-pound car, 33-inch tire? What cam and stuff do you have in that? And what intake and heads, how high are you running the motor is kind of what I want to know now. Are you planning to run the M90 full-time on your truck? I don't know. We'll have to see. Have you done double M90? Not yet. Pump gas will knock before it stops making more torque. Pump gas won't knock NA, but it definitely will under boost. We never run the same timing with 91 that we do with E85. Stroker LS3 cam recommendation for max NA power wanting over 625. Well, if you take a look at the 6-liter stroker that we did, the 408, it made 625. That I'm pretty sure that LS3 stage 4 cam that Brian Tooley has will make more than that. Will make that number with the right heads and the right displacement and intake manifold. And then he also has some sort of stroker cam that probably is even a little bit bigger. And if you have valve release, which you should at putting together a stroker, you definitely can do it with that. Trade fuel pump for heads. Best budget non-Chinese LS cams, Summit or Elgin around 600 lift. I don't think that there is that. I'd be more concerned with you getting the cam that you want that's going to do what you need it to do. And then once you decide on that, then you could look at the pricing for those. I think that the Summit cams right now are less than the Elgin cams are. Turbo, you're out. If you're going to rev to 7,000 to 8,000, like in the tree intake on an L33, what lifters would be optimal? Well, the ones that we use were the ones that were in the motor from the wrecking yard. Maybe invite Lake onto your live and ask him for the ring recommendations. Imagine he'd be an awesome guest. Lake is fantastic. I go see him when we do the MPMC conference. And we're just like giddy as schoolgirls going in there. He's like, "Oh, dude, I've been waiting for you. I know you have some cool stuff to show me, so please let's get into it." And he gets into the profilometer stuff, and it's just it's too much. He goes, "There's not very many people here I can explain this to." I said, "I know. I'll come in. We can go over all of it." I said, and then maybe Jeff Smith can come in and you can go over all of it. Whipple's, Magnuson's, TVS series, yes, all of those are good. Do you have video of the truck on the dyno? Sounds like it didn't go as planned. I do. I'm thinking about making a video, except that the result is disappointing. So I kind of we want to go back and try it again, and so that we have some dyno results. The 85 timing on a turbo LS setup when you're really pushing for what's it's worth. I have a 6-liter LS6 with an S488 Summit Stage 2 cam. An S488. So what is that? If it's really an 88 millimeter turbo, is it a 1400 horsepower turbo or something? I don't think I've ever run. We've run E85 up in the 1,000 horsepower range, but whenever we did the Big Bang stuff where we were running lots of boosts and making lots of power, I had like 118 or 116 race gas in it. I think we probably could do it with E85. But up there with ice water and a cold motor, I think we had about 18 degrees. What heads do you recommend on a 5.3 board to 3903 with a comp cam, the 285, 293? Tell me what the duration is at 50. That's the number that I want. I think I know what that camshaft is. But look at there are lots and lots of choices. You could do ported, any ported factory head will work on there except for a rec port head. You could do lots and lots of different really good aftermarket heads. You could do any of the trick flow heads, a 215, a 225. The 220 as cast head is really good and probably more affordable than the CNC stuff. The airflow research stuff is really good, and that there's so many good choices for that you'd be happy with. Just got my first LS. It's stock. It's a 6.2. Well, that's a really good start. If it's what LS2 is it, or what 6.2 is it? Is it an LS3? We have to guess. Yeah, Sean, you have to guess how many pulls the 5.3 liter L33 has on it to date, to right now. Let's see. I'm going back. Here we go. What kind of power do you think you can make with a carbureted M90 on a fairly stock 283 or 327? It depends on what you mean by stock. Is it stock like 350 horsepower stock, like a L76 327? Or is it stock like 300 horsepower? Or is it stock like 250 horsepower to start out with NA? But the right M90, like a Gen 5 M90, we know will support a lot of power. So you just have to, basically turn it up. And the carbureted M90 is going to be harder to do because you don't want to do what we did by boring a hole in it. You could run it through the back, but I don't really, at this point, don't really recommend a carbureted M90. Stock 4.8, 78, 75 VS Racing Turbo. Want to stay under 500 horsepower so I can use Corvette filter and regulator. Okay. If you're wanting to stay under 500 horsepower, I wouldn't choose that turbo. I would pick a smaller turbo. 111 pulls on the junkyard engine is your guess. Would you need a pulley between the double M90 blowers to get good friction on the two blowers? The configuration for the two blowers would be idlers on both of them. When I tuned a built 400 horsepower Mazda, was getting squeezed between high EGTs, not enough spark advance, and not too much advance. Yeah, that also is a problem, and not enough spark advance can lead to knock. If you do it for long enough and you get temperature back in there. Coverman, what's going on? Everybody say hi to Terry. He's in the house. Gen 3 6-liter truck Norris cam on 93 octane with an S475. How much power do you think would make at 15 pounds? I don't know about the 93. I don't know how much timing you're going to have to take away. It's going to be quite a bit. The truck Norris cam 6-liter. The S475 can support 1,000 horsepower, let's say. I don't think you're not going to be there. On 93 octane, I don't know, 750 or something maybe. Hey, building 11.621 compression 455 Pontiac, cool, with the 85 and Butler heads. How many PSI boosts could I get away with before the 85 will detonate? Well, how much do you want to make, and why are you doing it at 11.6 if you're adding a turbo? Been thinking of buying a sloppy stage 2 Chinese clone cam on eBay, but scared it will blow apart. That is a chance that you take because the metallurgy, the machining, the repeatability, all of those things come into question. Got 80-pound injectors, Holly Terminator, just need a cam, maybe a smaller pulley for a little more boost. Lost a fair amount after the intercooler. 6 PSI would be great. 500 to 600 horsepower is my goal. Well, Andrew, take a look at the LS1 and the LS2 Vortex stuff that I did. And also take a look at, there's a lot of Vortex videos up there on LS things. Take a look at the 5.3 and the 6.0 and the 4.8. I ran Vortex on all of those. And you can see what kind of cams we had in those and what kind of power that they produce. But 500 or 600 horsepower with a supercharged LS is not hard at all. Flowtech's coming out with a new LS1 cylinder head. King, that's the first I've heard of that. I didn't know about those. The 8500 solid rollers are worth horsepower. Yeah, and at 8500, I would think solid rollers would definitely be the way to go. Mr. Holden, would I have to use more boost with a smaller turbo? Say a GT35 over a GT45, would they be similar under the same PSI? They can be if both of the turbos can support the power output, combination of power output and boost level that you're talking about. So if you have a 400 horsepower motor and you're trying to run 15 pounds, a GT35 isn't going to get there. It's not going to do that. In fact, if you're doing that, GT45 is going to be hard pressed to get there. So you have to make sure that you're doing the test in your question in an area where they both can support it. If they both can't support that, they're not going to make it. Because what will happen is if you're asking the GT45 to supply more airflow than it can at a given pressure, it just has a falling boost curve and it's just not going to work. Eric, what are you talking about? Oh, the head thing. Yeah, I don't need that pump. I'm just going to buy a 255 for my truck. Have you ever tested an inexpensive air-to-water intercooler against a higher range one, something like a $600 budget for each, excluding charge piping, but including? I don't really base the things usually on pricing. I've run lots of air-to-air intercoolers and air-to-water intercoolers. Most of the ones that I've run are not that expensive. Like we've run lots of stuff from CX Racing, DYNO. We've run stuff for or from, and they've all worked pretty well. I'm more interested when I'm looking at those intercoolers, a comparison between an expensive one and an inexpensive one. I'm not interested in that comparison. I'm interested in terms of you getting what you want. I'm interested in you sizing the intercooler properly. So make sure it has the in and out size that you want and decent, core size. And then all the ones that I've tested have had a pretty good combination when we run it in the right power range of pressure drop and temperature drop. And they've all worked pretty well. I haven't yet run across one where we didn't just undersize the core, where you have excessive boost buildup on one side and very little temperature change. I haven't run across that yet in any of them. Baby Shark, you're guessing 321. I'm proud to be. Is it bad I want to lower my 4x4 Dakota when I restore it so I can have more fun on the back roads? You want to lower it? What do you think of octane booster? You can buy it the auto parts store stuff is probably not going to do very well. Do LS like and perform well with water methanol? I have lots of water methanol tests. It definitely lowers charge temperature and can reduce detonation, which is a good thing. Thanks, Rich. I only asked because I thought you said you don't recommend that much RPM on stock. What was the? I don't even know what question I answered now. All of the testing that we've run on the L33 has been with the original lifters. What stall should I get for converter on a built 6-liter LS drag engine with a trans brake and a glide? 469 cam, 317 heads, long twos, mid-rise Holly. I don't know. I'm not a power glide expert. I don't know how. I don't ever remember helping anybody set that kind of thing up. I'm questioning the mid-rise Holly intake because that's not a very good performing manifold. Is it cheaper to build the turbo for my LQ4 or buy a supercharger? It's cheaper to turbo it. 91 poles on the L33. I want to go carb. Given the phrasing of the question, it's either going to be close to 100 or a bit above, so I'll stick with 112, especially since someone guessed 111. I'm going to prices right him. Could run an LY6 at 14 pounds on 93, 78, 75. Is that a question? Could you run that? I don't know. I don't know if you do run. I don't know why people are stuck on a boost level. You should be looking at a power level. But if you're looking at a boost level, what is the air inlet temperature going into the turbo? What is it coming out of the turbo after the intercooler? You have to have an intercooler if you're going to be doing this. And then I don't know why you want 14 pounds. But if you do you want 14 pounds, your tune is going to have to be spot on, and which means you're going to have not very much timing. Probably, I know Matt likes to do 14 degrees of timing and 14 pounds of boost, but your timing is going to be less than that, possibly down into single digits at the torque peak, depending on a few things, the static compression and stuff. Get a little knock at 24 degrees of time. Figured I'd be able to do 25 on pump 93, but we dialed it back to 93. 23, I'm assuming. After I fix the transmission, I'm going to add flex and shoot for 29. I have the BTR NA Stage 2 cam, my LS3. Actually, it's an L92 416 stroker. Okay, that's different. I was thinking about getting the new V2 BTR stroker cam, but it might be a bit much for an everyday driver. Yeah, you definitely have to make compromises when you're doing that. JS, don't worry about that. You just pick the thing that you want to do, man. Best hit for an LQ9 that will be boosted. You shouldn't phrase it that way. You should be looking, what the question you should be asking is, how much power do I want to make? Now that I've got that. I've got the answer to that. Now, how do I make that? Do I even need to change the head? If you have an LS, and unless this number over here is really, really big, you don't need to change the cylinder head. Whatever head you have on there is going to work, because there's no best head. There's no best cam. There's no best turbo. None of that. Water methanol system, how much different timing and boost it makes on turbo setup? You mean how much more boost and timing can you run with methanol? I don't know what the answer is to that. More, certainly. The thing that concerns me about water methanol is distribution, and especially in a long run or LS style intake manifold. I don't know that you get the same amount of cooling and detonation suppression with a water methanol injection system that's injecting a single nozzle or two nozzles in the discharge tube. I don't know that you get equal distribution of all that. In our testing, it shows that you don't do that. And so then you'd have to be tuning according to the one that got the least amount of cooling and detonation suppression based on that system. And so I don't know what that number is. What's your favorite 3800 cam? I don't have one. I like testing all of them. What's the lowest power I can make on that? I have a turbo and a 4.8. I'm trying to make exhaust work on a right-hand drive. It's interesting, so hoping to make it work. What's the lowest power you can make? Do you want to just start pulling spark plugs and stuff? Matt, 243 pulls. Would you say the Summit Stage 2 turbo cam is too small for a 6-liter? No. I think it's really hard to go too small of a cam on a turbo 6-liter. Richard, on a 255 Wallworld, do you want in the tank or external pump? I'm just going to put, I already have an order from Summit. It's going in. It's in the tank one. It's just a replacement deal. Just to ask about Gen 5 big block Chevy, what heads for max effort torque build? Do you really want to spend aftermarket aluminum head money on a torque application? I think I was doing that and I didn't want the maximum amount of horsepower, then I would pick one of the inexpensive ones. I would get the Pro Max or Skip Whites or something like that. You could get an AFR Enforcer head and make lots of low speed torque. I mean, I suppose you could get an Airflow Research 265 head, or maybe even like a 290 or something. Adding torque storm supercharger. I won the Butler heads at a local Pontiac event, trying to make 800 horsepower. Already have a built short block 455 with forged flat top pistons. I think the torque storm is, you're gonna have to really spin it to make 800. But if you already have a really efficient NA motor, maybe it'll get there. Bill is for a 4,400 pound 66 Pontiac Bonneville. Nice. 700 foot-pounds. My goal is 700 foot-pounds. You're trying to make 700 foot-pounds of torque. Let's see. With an NA 540. Let's see. Oh, yeah, that's 1.3. That's a pretty good bit, though. Trigger happy you're going to 1,200. Do you have trunnion upgrade on the L33? No. Nope. It has it does have hardened push rods in it. Right now there's 7 250s, I think, what we've been using on most things with those trick flow heads. It has the Brian Tooley Extreme RPM or Max RPM valve spring and titanium retainers on it. And I think so far, probably all the cams that we've run up there are fairly stable. How does a BFD chop monster perform on an LF7? I've never tried one. Wonder if you should make a video about how to choose your goals and refer people to that. That probably would be helpful, huh? Considering leaving my 5.3 stock, you mentioned getting better response from a smaller turbo and suggested GT35. I want to go 10 pounds of boost, which I believe is a little over 500 horsepower. Yeah, and the GT35 on a stock 5.3 is going to be pretty responsive. Make sure you get if I don't know what size hot sides they have on a GT35 82, but make sure you get a pretty good size hot side. Engine Masters did a test with a dry flow manifold and an nitro system. It was pretty bad. I have videos up on 802's distribution tests on a truck manifold on a nitro setup blowing into the throttle body. Richard secretly has a big boy brushless air motive, not for the truck. That's what we have on the dyno though, and that works good. Richard is going to offer an external Walboro 255 that I'm no longer going to need. Now I lost you. Just to support the cause. No worries about that, man. What would you say to a too big of a cam for a stock bottom end and stock heads with a single plane intake with a carbon for it? What would you say would be too big of a cam? Well, too big of a cam won't fit available piston to valve clearance. So it would hit something. So that would be bad. And then the stock bottom end is not a worry because, as we said, we're running these things fairly high. And then it would depend on a single plane and stock heads. You're just going to run out of flow potential for the stock heads. It's starting M90s on Facebook for $400. Wow. I want a 5.3 Avalanche to be turbo, but also have a nice cam chop. I have a 4L80 and plan to run 300 or 3200 stall with sinking a sloppy stage 1.5. That's a good one. I had the video that I'm working on today is a comparison between that big nasty cam that has although again, Brian Nutter from Summit swears to me that thing can use a stock converter, but I don't think it can. Just like I don't think that the Truck Norris is a good application for a stock converter. Or I should phrase that differently, that it would be better with a different converter than the stock converter. A 3000 or 3200 gives you some wiggle room on camshaft. So maybe a hot rod cam, something like that. Plan to put a 300 shot on it. Yeah, that's a lot. We've run 300 shots on carbureted LS deals. I just did trunnions on my 5.3. Nice. I guess is 176 pulls. It would be nice to see you try some of the Chinese knockoff Garrett G series turbos on the LS. They make good power on other engine combos given their physical size. I'll have to take a look at that. I've not looked at them. Why does the Gen 5 M90 make more power than others? It has an awful lot going for it. Compared to a Gen 3 M90, it has a bigger inlet, which is right off the bat going to make it better. It has a better design and size discharge also. So I think it has different coated rotors too, but I think the inlet and the discharge are the major things. Do you plan on doing a big bang on the L33? Nope. Also, folks should check out the Garrett turbo size and how to size a turbo. It requires some math, but it's easy. Yeah. They have I think it's BorgWarner has Matchbox and Garrett has actual compressor maps on their stuff, those are really good turbos. I mean, if you can afford a Garrett, they're going to make some power, and you get to see exactly what they can do based on the compressor maps, because a lot of the stuff that we throw on there is not compressor map oriented. Finally got my 2010 Colorado swap. I ended up with a 430 horse GM Performance LS3 and a Reman 4L60. I put a Corvette servo in it. There you go. That's like a shift kit. Running an external cooler with a fan. Not that I'm going to use one, but I did know that the M90 existed until I saw the videos. Brian, what 430 horsepower LS3 do you have? Is it a crate motor? How is it configured that it makes 430 horsepower? I'm curious, because that's what the factory one is rated at, and every time we test it, it makes 495 with headers on it. Question: how would you make a DZ302 without the original block? I've heard there are small journals, but is there a way to make them from a 350? I know it's a 4-inch bore. Yeah, you can. I think what we did was put, you can do bearing inserts in if you don't have the right crank. I think we used a 283 crank. What off-the-shelf cam would you suggest for a single cab Colorado 5.3 single plane, long tubes, and an NV 2500 with 273 gears, 1 RPM, and drivability? So you want both ends of the spectrum? For 5.3s, I always suggest people put Truck Norrises in them. If you want more power and more top end power and less low speed power than a hot rod or something. LH4 at my wrecking yard. Yes, you should get that. How much power would you say is safe for Mercury Marine Gen 5 502 block board and stroke to 540? I don't know. What's the best NA monster setup for a 6-liter? It would be really, really expensive. Yeah, the Garrett stuff is nice, and the problem is that, and the problem with telling somebody to go use Garrett and then apply it to other things over on this side is that they don't transfer, because a 76 millimeter Garrett is not the same as a 76 millimeter CX Racing or some other kind of turbo. They're just not the same. The newer, especially the newer Garrett stuff, is fantastic. They can make a lot of power. I have a Garrett for the Sprint. A little one. I think it's a 20. Richard, I want 100 foot-pounds more at 2,000 and 100 horsepower more at 7,000. My 5.3. What's the magic cam? That'd be great if I could make that. I could probably sell a lot of them, right? So the question before I go, the question is for today. I have a 5.3, an aluminum L33 that I got from the wrecking yard. I've been running a lot of different tests with it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think 9 or 10 different times that I've gone down to run various different tests. We've used it for, a variety of different things, testing intake manifolds and turbos and spark plugs and things. How many pulls does that motor have on it as of today? So the winner that guesses the right amount of pulls that I've made will win a free camshaft. They'll win the CHOPACABRA camshaft that I have. And by the way, if anybody out there wants other cams, let me know. Just send me an email. And because I have some other ones that are just sitting around that I haven't used for a long time. And they, they need to go to a good home. I'll go ahead and put my email address here. I need to offload some of those and make some room in my storage. So if you guys are looking for cams, let me know. Derail conversation. Have you ever been to Florida when it's cold to see the iguanas fall out of the trees? I haven't. That would be quite a sight, though. Yeah, I think that's right. So we'll go ahead and close out our poll at 78%. Does the L33 have more than 100 dyno pulls so far? 78% are saying yes. 22% are saying no. I use all your dynos for planning my builds. And on that note, it is time to go. But I will see you guys all tomorrow. And then somebody remind me 22. So like by the end of this month, in a week, let's say, I can announce the winner.